can now save a new employee over to Firebase. We just need to make sure that after we save a record successfully, we kick the user back over to the employee list screen, where they will eventually be able to see the new employee appear on the screen. Right now, we also have a big red error message here that is telling us, hey, your action creator employee create isn't really following the rules. You're not returning an object with a type property on it. To solve this issue, we're going to use Redux Thunk again inside of this little bit, inside of this action creator right here. But we're going to use Redux Thunk to kind of bend, well, let's say break the rules this time. We're going to use it to break the rules. So with Firebase, we've got this data that we're pushing off to this remote reference right here, and we don't really need a response back from Firebase, right? Like the data gets persisted, that's it, we're happy, we're done. When our employee list component comes together and we go and get that list of all the different employees, the employee list is going to automatically update itself with the new employee that just got added. So what I'm trying to say is we don't really need to dispatch an action from this action creator at all. And we really don't need to send anything out. We don't need to do anything with it. So that means we don't really need to return an action. And we don't really need to wrap this with Redux Thunk for the sake of getting access to the dispatch method. We just kind of like want this thing to fade off into nothingness. So to make that happen, we're going to pretend like we're going to use Redux Thunk, but we're really not. So I'm going to wrap this with a fat arrow function like so. So now this will be called by Redux Thunk, right? So we are satisfying the rules of Redux Thunk here, but we're not actually using the dispatch method or anything like that at all. So that's the idea. There is one more thing we need to do inside of here, however. We need to make sure that after an employee is successfully created, we want to navigate them back to the employee list screen where they should see the new employee pop up. So to do so, we can add on a .then to this promise. And inside of that .then, we will call our actions object, remember the actions object from our routing library, to navigate back to the employee list. So we'll call actions.employee list. We also need to make sure that we import actions at the top. So we'll go up to the top and import actions from React Native router Flux, like so. Okay, so again, we are really breaking the rules of Redux Thunk here by exploiting the fact that we can return a function, but we're not actually dispatching anything here at all. Just to be really clear, the reason I'm choosing to wrap this with a fat arrow function at all is to get past this requirement of Redux Thunk. So it's a little bit dishonest, but it it definitely works out for us. Okay. I think that we're all ready to give this thing a nice little test. So I will go ahead and refresh, and then we will toss in an email of test.com, and password. And then we will add a new employee. So this time, let's say we got Alex, he's at 444, and I'll go with Wednesday, we'll create, and then we get kicked back over to the employee list like so. Well, this appears to have worked. There's just one little weird thing in here. You'll notice that when we got navigated over to the employee list, we kind of added onto our stack of current views. So we've got this back button here. But that doesn't really suit what we're supposed to be doing here, right? I don't want to be able to go back to the employee creation form. I really should have gone back, so to speak, to the employee list in the first place. So there's two ways that we can handle this. We can either pass an additional argument to this employee list action right here of reset true. Or excuse me, I got that backwards. Type reset. There we go. So if we pass in an option of type reset, that's going to tell our navigation library that we want to go to the employee list, but don't treat it like it's a view that we're going to advance into, and so it could press the back button to go to the previous one. By passing in type reset, it means go to the employee list screen and just don't pretend like we can go back to the previous screen before. Just like reset the entire view stack. So let's give this a test now. Go to test.com again. We'll add a new employee. Let's see, let's do John. What the heck? And John has to work on Tuesday. So now we'll create, and then we get kicked back over to the employee list screen, which is exactly what we want. And this time we don't have a back button, which is definitely the behavior that we want to have in here. We can also now go check out our Firebase console if we want to, just to have a little bit of fun. And you'll now see that for the currently authenticated user, we have 2 additional employees in here. So I've now got Alex and John in here as well. All right, there is one last little thing that we need to do, one last little thing that we need to think of. I've said several times that, hey, we don't need to actually dispatch an action from here. Well, maybe we don't, but I want you to see something a little bit interesting. We've now created an actual employee, right? We just created one. I'm going to go back to the employee creation form. And when I go there, you'll notice that very interestingly, our form still has John as the name and the phone number and shift in here as well. So, that's pretty darn interesting. So it turns out that just because we happen to save the data, right? Just because we created a new record over on Firebase, that does not automatically clear out all the state that is in our form reducer for us. Remember, the form is going to show whatever data is sitting inside this reducer or being produced by this reducer. Just because we save it does not mean that that state gets automatically or magically cleared out in any fashion. So the instant that I go back to the form will still be populated with all of the existing state that we still had in there. So definitely a little bit unexpected. We can solve this by saying, you know what, maybe we do actually want to have an action in here. Maybe we do want to dispatch an action from this file, or excuse me, from this action creator. So maybe we'll say that after we successfully create an employee, we will not only navigate back to the employee list, but we will also dispatch an action that will be responsible for resetting all of the fields in that form. So after we create the new user, we will reset the form and navigate back to the employee list. I think that'll be a reasonable approach. So let's go with that. To be able to dispatch an action, we have to make sure that we receive the dispatch method inside this function right here. So I'll add in dispatch. And then in our .then, we will make sure that we not only navigate over to the employee list, we will also dispatch an action. Let's say that'll be of type, how about employee create? That makes sense. So we will watch for the type of employee create inside of our form reducer. And the instant we see that type, we will reset all the fields inside our form. So we need to make sure that we create this type. So I'm going to scroll up to the top. Let me get a semicolon in there. And I'll scroll up to the top. We'll get our employee create. I'll make sure that I add that type inside my types file. So here's my types file. Export const employee create. Then we can flip back over to our reducer as well and handle it inside of our form reducer. So we'll pull in employee create, and then we'll add in the case for it as well. So case employee create. A lot of employee creates all over the place, huh? So now inside of our reducer right here, whenever we see this employee create message come across, it means this this employee has successfully been created. We can reset all of the properties in the form or in this reducer so that the next time the user looks at the form, it'll be completely clear, totally empty. So here we can just return initial state. We don't really have to do the ... state or anything like that. We can just return the initial state here because we really just want to reset this thing back to how it first existed. All right, so let's give this a shot now. I will refresh the simulator. We'll do test.com. And what's a good name to use this time? Let's go with Nick. How about Nick? Nick will also be 555. And then he'll be on, how about Thursday? So now we'll create this. We get kicked back to the employee list screen. And then when I go back to the add screen, the form is completely empty again because my employee form reducer no longer holds a name, phone, or shift from when I just created Nick. So perfect, just what we want. Let's continue in the next section.